Hello. All right, that's Maniac McGee. We're gonna try and finish it today. I'm not gonna lie, this reading out loud though is kind of making me go a little crazy. Okay, we're gonna finish vocab for sure. So get out your bookmark. We're gonna do the last. You should have 4 blanks left. So the first one is going to be ludicrous. That is found on page 150. 150, ludicrous. Let me read it to you. Maniac couldn't help laughing. In spite of their twisted, ludicrous impressions of EastEnders, the concern and the tears in her eyes had been genuine. Tenet is page 151. Three months and he still doesn't know his tenant's name. Get your little hide over here. Start lugging these. Extorts, page 154. He could always extort a day or two in class from them with a free weekly pizza. And Gonulent is page 165. The Cobra stayed, and Maniac, clamping the struggling Mars bars for dear life, lugged him from down a gauntlet of seething eyes to the door in the street. All right, again, pause me if you need to. Ludicrous is ridiculous. A tenant is a person or group that rents a house, apartment, or office space. Extort is to compel something from a person. And a gauntlet is an attack from 2 or all sides. Okay, grammar. It's just 4 of them. So let's do them all together to make it easy for you guys. Page 39, you have 2 of them. The first one is, in spite of the twisted, ludicrous impressions of the EastEnders, the concern and tears in their eyes had been genuine. Number 1, so in needs to be capitalized. In spite of their twisted, ludicrous impressions of EastEnders, and that needs to be capitalized, comma, the concern and the tears in their eyes have been genuine. And what is this? It's going to be an adjective because you're describing something. Number 2, 3 months and he still doesn't know his tenant's name. 3 needs to be spelled out and capitalized. 3 months and he still didn't. That needs to be an apostrophe in there. Know his tenant's apostrophe S name. And this is a noun because it is a person. Chapter 40, number 1. He could always extra a day or 2 in class from them with a free weekly pizza. He is capitalized. And 2 needs to be written out. There's a rule with numbers and writing it out. I'm not really sure what it is. I can look it up for you. I want to say if it's like 10 or under, you're supposed to write the word out. In class for, or from them with the free weekly pizza, period, and this is a verb. Okay, I'm going to erase this first one to do chapter 42, number 1. Whoopsies. I have all these cords up because my battery and stuff are not lasting. I have videos on my phone I'm doing, videos on here I'm doing, trying to get it all done. And as best as I can. Alright. The cobras. So cobras need to be capitalized. That is a certain group of people they are talking about. Stayed, comma, and maniac, comma, clamping, the struggling, Mars bars, and Mars bars needs to be capitalized. For dear life, and their deer is spelled wrong. That's like a deer, like a animal deer. For dear life, comma, lugged him down a gauntlet of seething eyes to the door and the street, and this is a noun. Okay, so that means all your vocab, or all your grammar and vocab should not be done for the whole entire book. So I'll explain to you, because I gave you a few other vocab stuff. I'll explain that in a minute. All right, we're going to go to the questions. There is a lot, so please don't like freak out, because we are going to finish a chapter. There's a lot of questions, but not really. There's like maybe 1 or 2 per page. So I'm going to actually sit down for this because I am a little bit tired. All right, chapter 38. We're on page, 39. We're on page 149. So your first question that you're looking for is, what do you think the new smell is? Ooh, remember he kept on spelling these odors at the McNabb house. Not good ones, to say the least either. Okay, put down this chair that I had up. I would turn off the lights like we normally do, because today is the, the 24th, and it's raining outside and dark and cold. We're gonna keep them up. All right, during the night, March doubled back and grabbed April by the scruff of the neck and flung it another week or 2 down the road. When Maniac slipped silently from the house at dawn, the only way he'd ever managed to get away, March pounced with cold and nasty paws. But Maniac wasn't minding. The reunion had been ecstatic and tearful and nonstop happy, and inside he was pure joy. He was half a block up Sycamore before he stopped tiptoeing. Minutes later, he crossed Hector. The streets were dry. An occasional scrap of chewed rye-hod was all that remained of the worms. Hours later, Russell and Piper spotted him 3 blocks off. Maniac, you're alive. We thought they got you. We thought they slit your throat. We thought they strangled you and pulled your tongue out. We thought they chopped your head off and boiled you. Yeah, boiled you and drunk your blood. Yeah, and drunk your brains. You don't drink brains, you moron meatball. Yeah, you do. Brains are like milkshakes, like Dairy Queen. You can't drink them with the straw. You can drink them with the straw. You can hear them sloshing if you shake your head hard enough. Listen. Hey, get off my head. Hey, help. They were off running. Maniac couldn't help laughing. In spite of their twisted, ludicrous impressions of EastEnders, the concern and the tears in their eyes had been genuine. They really missed him. They had really been afraid for him. 2 houses away, he could hear the thump, almost feel it, and Father George McNabb's voice. Lay him down easy, I said, easy. Followed by son John. This easy enough thump, followed by a string of curses from John McNabb that fried the cold morning like an egg. The living room was hazy with dust. At the back end of the dining room, they were bringing in the cinder blocks. George and John had a handful of cobras, lugging and grunting them in front of the backyard and dumping them to the floor. Thump, thump. Hey, kid, George McNabb was pointing through the haze. 3 months and he still didn't know his tenant's name. Get your little hide over here. Start lugging these. Maniac waved. Later, gotta go. He shut the door and headed up the street. So, they were really doing it. He had heard them playing it for weeks, making drawings, buying or stealing cement trowels in a box, a pill box, they called it. Once it was done, they'd be ready. Let the revolt begin. Let the rebels, as they called the EastEnders, come. Let them bust through the newly installed bars over the plywood on the windows. Let them bust through the steel door. They'll find themselves staring down the barrel of the little surprise. They scrabbled over what the surprise could be. Uzi, AK-40, bazooka. Why? Maniac had asked Giant John one day. Why what? Why are you doing all this? To get ready. What else? Well, what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen? Giant John swatted a squad of roaches from the kitchen table and sat down. What's going to happen is, one of these days, they're going to revolt. Who says? Who cares who says? You think we're going to make an announcement? Maniac tried to picture Amanda and Hester and Lester and Bow Wow storming the barricades. When's this all supposed to happen? John shrugged. You never know. Maybe this summer. He jumped up, grabbed a beer from the fridge, flipped it open. They like to revolt in the summer, makes them itchy. They like to overrun the cities. This time we'll be ready. And he told Maniac what he often imagined, lying in bed, the blacks sweeping across Hector one steaming summer night, torches, chains, blades, guns, war cries, mortaring, looting, overrunning the West End, climbing in through smashed windows, doors, looking for whites, bloodthirsty for whites, like Indians in the old days, Indians on a raid. That's what they are, Giant John nodded thoughtfully. Today's Indians. The cockroach strolling up the pant leg wasn't the only thing feeling Maniac feel crawly. He shook off the roach. He moved the center of the kitchen to surround himself with as much space as possible. But other people, he said, I don't hear them talking about revolts. Nobody else wants to make a pillbox. Giant John tilted the last of his beer into his mouth. Maybe we do that. Maybe when we do, he grinned, they will. That had been weeks before, and now the pillbox was underway. No longer an idea in the backyard, but a reality in the dining room. Now there was no room that Maniac could stand in the middle of it and feel clean. Now there was something else in the house, and it smelled worse than garbage and turds. Okay, this after the question, the next page says, compare the lifestyle of the McNabb family and the Beale family. Explain the irony of the McNabb sphere of the EastEnders. This can be extra credit. I'm not going to make you do this. If you want to, though, again, just take a picture of it and share it with me. So that's extra credit if you want to do it. All right, chapter 40. He ran far that day, away from the town, letting the wind wash him. When he returned to the East End, he heard in the distance Mrs. Pickwell whistling her children to dinner. Though he had heard the whistle many times, he had not answered it since his first day in town. Now he felt as if he had that day that it was meant for him. This time, of course, there was a difference. He was no stranger. He was Maniac McGee, the kid who had walked barefoot through the dump near their house. The Pickwell kids cheered when he showed up and treated him like a legend in the flash. Mrs. Pickwell did better. She treated him like a member of the family, as if she would have been surprised if he hadn't come in the whistle. Nor was Maniac the only visitor for dinner. Mr. Pickwell had brought home a down-and-out shoe salesman in sore need of a sympathy and a good meal. As Maniac ate and laughed and talked and laughed his way through dinner, he couldn't help thinking of the Beals, how alike the two families were, friendly, giving, accepting, so easily that he could picture the Beals' brown faces around the dinner table, and the little Pickwell's kids' white bodies in the bathtub at 728 Sycamore. Whoever had made the Hector Street a barrier was surely not these people. Fortified by his good times at the Pickwells, Maniac returned to the McNabbs. After the East End scare, Russell and Piper no longer demanded stunts of him in return for attending school. On one hand, this was a relief to Maniac. On the other, it left him with less influence over them. He could always extort a day or two in class from them with the free weekly pizza. Beyond that, he goaded them toward school any way he could. He organized a marble tournament that could take place only in the schoolyard during recess. He tried reading to them as he had to Hester and Lester and to Grayson, but they paid as much attention as the Roaches. He took them to the library, then scraped the idea after their shenanigans left the librarian blubbering and blue-faced. Then May arrived at this warm weather and blew away what little power he had left. The boys began to dream of travel. Wood appeared in the backyard where they were building a raft. Gonna sail down the river to the ocean, they said. One day he heard frenzied horn honking and screaming. He turned to see an ancient Russin gas hog convertible rolling by. with Russell behind the wheel and Piper jumping up and down and shrieking in the back seat. By the time Maniac caught up, they were gone and the car was shuddering against a telephone pole. Another time, he had to run them down and haul them back to Dorsey's grocery, where he made them empty their bulging pockets of the 50 bubble gums they had stolen. It was maddening, chaotic time for Maniac. Running in the mornings and reading in the afternoons gave him just enough stability to endure the zany nights of the McNabs. When he asked himself why he didn't drop them, the answer was never clear. It wasn't so much that he wanted to stay as he couldn't, in some vague way, to abandon the McNab boys, but to be abandoned something inside in himself. He couldn't shake the suspicion that deep inside Russell and Piper McNab, in the prayer deep seat of their kidhoods, they were identical to Hester and Lester Beale, but they were spoiling, rotting from the outside in, like a pair of peaches in the sun. Soon, unless somebody else did something, the rot would reach the pit. And yet he held back. Oh, he prodded and persuaded and inspired and bribed the boys to do right, but he never forced them, never commanded, never shouted, because to do so would be parental, and he was not ready for that. How could he act as a father to these boys when he himself ate to be somebody's son? But then one day the boys went too far. He found them playing with the old glove Grayson had given him for Christmas. As if that weren't bad enough, they were using it as a football, punting it back and forth. Maniac exploded. He popped out for a good 10 minutes, got it all out. This was the last straw, he told them. From now on, it was going to be different. No more Mr. Nice Guy. When I say jump, you say how high. Got it? They got it. For the first time in their lives, the boys were speechless. Speechless as they did their homework that night. Speechless as they went to bed at 9 o'clock. Speechless when they went off to school the next morning. The peace lasted 3 days. Shock accounted for the first day. The second and third day were a new game, called Obedience or Being Good. When the game lost its appeal, Maniac lost his power. He told them to sit, they stood. He told them to stand, they sat. Instead of going to school, they worked on their raft. Instead of doing homework, they played war in the pillbox. They brought their plastic weapons down from the hole and stationed themselves at the 2 small gunnery slots in the cinder block wall and blasted away at anyone moving through the house, not to mention imaginary rebels streaming through the door and over the windowsills. Stop, Maniac friendly yelled and snatched at 2 red gun barrels protruding from their slots. In a moment, 2 more barrels appeared. Stop, he commanded. Ain't shooting you, Russell whined. We're shooting them, rebels. Bam, bam, bam. Pow, got one. Bam, pow, got another. Bam, bam. I said stop. Maniac grabbed the guns, threw them on the floor, and stomped on them. He didn't stop until their plastic splinters. The only sound was of the turtles scratching somewhere in the room. The gunnery slots framed the boys' dumbstruck faces. Russell was the first to speak. Get out of my house. Yes, sneered Piper, out of here. Maniac went upstairs, got his satchel, and was gone. That night and the next night he supped at the park. The following day, as he sat reading the library, in came the McNab boys. They rushed at him. Hey, Maniac, blurted Piper. We've been looking all over for you. You gotta come to my birthday party. I'm having a party tomorrow. What do you say, huh? You coming home? Maniac couldn't believe it. The ugly feelings of the other day showed over on their excited faces. Come on, Maniac, you gotta. And just like that, as he stared at them, the idea came, an idea as zany as they were. The words seemed to lift right off their faces like sunburnt skin peeling. Well, okay, he said on one condition. What's that? If I can bring somebody with me. Sure, bring everybody. We're going to party. The librarian edged closer to the phone. End of chapter. 41, the questions were, 40. Explain why Maniac stayed at the McNabs and what do you think Maniac's plan is? So who do you think he's going to invite to their party? 41. The McNab boys didn't know whom they did expect Maniac to bring to the party, but one thing was for sure, they did not expect him to come walking through the front door with a black kid. That was only a half of it. From the way the kid swaggered in, from the candy bar that jutted out like a chocolate stogie from the corner of his mouth, from the ripstone evil skull in his face, the kid had to be none other than Mars Bars Thompson himself. If black meant bad, if black meant in your face nastiest, if black meant as far as white you could get, then Mars Bars Thompson was the blackest of the black. Here, in the middle of their living room, stopping the party, the neighborhood kids, the Cobras, even George McNab, stopping them dead as traffic. Just walked in through the front door, the steel door, breezed right on in, past the bar, standing there, eye on this jointing there, before they knew what was happening, before anybody could reach for anything, which of course is just what Maniac had in mind, remembering how little Grayson had known about black people and black homes, thinking that the McNabs wrong-headed notions, thinking that Mars Bar's knee-jerk reaction to anybody wearing a white skin, and thinking, naturally, what else would you expect? Whites never go inside blacks' homes, much less inside their thoughts and feelings, and blacks are just ignorant of whites. What white kid could hate blacks after spending 5 minutes with the Beals house, and what black kid could hate whites for answering Mrs. Pickwell's dinner whistle? But the East Enders stayed in the East End, and the West Enders stayed in the West, and the less they knew by each other, the more they invented. It hadn't been easy, finding Mars bars taking all of his lip about cheating on the race, taking some bumps, some shoves, Mars goading him to fight, but keeping his own cool, matching Mars bar's glare for glare, telling him he wasn't as bad as he thought he was, really stoking him now, making him slam his candy bar on the ground. No, you want to tell me I ain't so bad, fish? Go ahead, for I waste ya. Chest to chest, looking cool, letting Mars do all the huffing. Simple, you don't cross Hector, you stay over there where it's safe. How bad would you be over there? Stepping back then, folding his arms, smugging it up just enough, standing there in his white skin, gazing nonchalantly about, 6 blocks deep in the heart of the black side. Guess that makes me badder than you. They did not go straight to the McNabs. First, they went to the Pickwells. Maniac wanted Mars bars to see the best the West End had to offer. The little Pickwells made as much fuss over Mars bars as over Maniac. They believed, as did all the little kids in the West End, that he carried 100 Mars bars with him at all times. Not surprisingly, Mrs. Pickwell had never batted an eye when she saw who was coming to dinner. It was quite a sight, all right. 16 Pickwells plus Maniac plus a down-and-out golf caddy, 18 so-called white faces, and Mars bars Thompson. To his credit, Mars bars didn't use the words fish belly or honky once, though on one occasion he did bend the truth a mite. When a Pickwell asked him if he was true about the famous race in April, did Maniac really beat him going backward? Mars bar studied his fork for a minute and said, yeah, he went backward, but you got the story wrong. Wasn't me he beat, was my brother Milky Way. The little kids couldn't understand why the grown-ups laughed for the 5 minutes after that. As for Mars bars himself, his expression never changed until the dinner was almost over, when the littlest non-baby Pickwell, Dolly, called him Mr. Barr, and even then it wasn't so much as a smile as a crack in the glare. Even if Mars wasn't letting on, Maniac could tell he was pleased to learn his fame has spread to the West. When they left, half the Pickwell kids followed them, begging Mars to perform his legendary feat of stopping traffic. Don't, Maniac warned. It might not work over here. But the Pickwells persisted, and when they reached Marshall Streets, Mars bars commanded, stay here, and stepped into the traffic. Not only did he shambo, jive, struck, and hippodoo all the way one sweet pace, he did something he had never done in the East End. He came to a complete and utter halt halfway across and let nothing but the evil in his eye take care of the rest. He stood like that for 1 full minute. By the time he finally moved on to the far side, so the legendary ghost, 23 cars, silver bicycles, and a bus were stacked to a dead stop in both directions. Maniac hurried across where the Pickwell stood at the curb, cheering and waving goodbye. But no one was cheering now for Fort McNab, and Maniac knew that despite the swagger in the skull and the chocolate stogie, Mars bars Thompson was one uneasy dude. Okay, 41. How did Maniac get Mars bars to come to the West End? And why did Maniac take Mars bars to Pickwell's first? 42. George McNab was the first to speak up. He was stretched out on the only new piece of furniture in the house, a tilt-back lounge chair. Said Mr. McNab, what's he doing here? The awkward silence that followed was mercifully broken by Piper tugging on Maniac's arm. Where's my birthday presents? What'd you get for me? Maniac pulled the present from his pockets. Piper exclaimed, a watch. No, said Maniac, a compass. It tells you which direction you're going. Like to the ocean, asked Russell. The ocean, Mexico, anywhere in the world. Only one thing. What's that? Maniac took the compass from Piper's hand. I'm keeping it until school is over. If you go every day, both of you, then you can have it back and sail around the world. On a raft, Piper cheered. Is it a deal? Piper and Russell and Maniac did a 3-way high five. It's a deal. George McNab pulled himself up from the easy chair and shuffled into the kitchen. He wore bare-backed slippers over bare feet. His white ankles were dirty. He took a beer can from the fridge and headed for the steps. Let me know when it leaves, he said, and went upstairs. Maniac could feel the voltage that surged through Mars bars and cracked black lightning from his eyes. Quickly, he clapped his hands. Hey, isn't this a party? Where's the games? So they played games, silly games, whose main object seemed to be shrieking and screaming. Mars bars allowed himself to be dragged into them, but his jaw was clenched and his eyes kept straining to the gaping hole in the ceiling, and to the cobras who were slouching against the walls and baseboards, sipping beers and watching his every move. None of them had spoken since Mars and Maniac walked in. Of course, as far as the little kids were concerned, the highlight of the whole party was not the birthday boy, Piper McNab, but the McNab's new pillbox. They found every excuse to stay inside. They fought over space at the narrow gunnery slots. When Mars bars whispered to Maniac, what is that? Maniac said it was a bomb shelter. Then Russell called, let's play Rebels. Whites in the pillbox, blacks outside. A cheer went up, and a dozen kids stampeded into the pillbox. Their gabblets circled their cinder block walls and popped into the gunnery slots. I'm going to be white. I'm white. Me too. Too many in here. We need more blacks. Not me. Not me. We ain't got enough guns. Only the ones with the guns are in. The rest of you, get out. You're black. Give me a gun. I had it first. Come on, you meatballs. Blacks is the best part. You get a charge. Yeah, we get to lose. Look, you can use beer cans for grenades. You can lob grenades. Then you can do it. Well, somebody got to be black. Who else we ain't playing. I'm counting 10. Time I hit 10, I want to see 5 of you out of here. 1. Russell counted. No one came out. Not at 9, not at 10, not after 10. Maniac and Mars Bar stared in silence at the gunnery slots, where wider eyes began to appear, one pair atop another. The 3 words that Mars Bar sneered the joke that he spat out, yeah, bomb shelter, did not even have the moment to themselves, for just then another word, Grimorno, came plunging from the sky and landed on the floor, jarring. Heart-stopping crash directly behind him. A cobra had jumped from the hole, a fat, red-haired cobra, who is now rolling on the floor laughing so hard as were all the cobras that his face matched the color of his hair. You see him jump? I never see his face. Somebody check out his pants, check out his drawers. Oh man. Maniac had a rat Mars bars and a bear hug to keep him from charging that fat red roller. The laughter stopped as if cut by scissors. The cobras were stinging. John McNabb stuttered forward. You got a problem, Sonny? That wasn't funny, John, said Maniac. He could have been hurt. McNabb kept his eyes on Mars bars. I ain't talking to you, McGee. I'm talking to Sonny here. Don't you like our party, Sonny boy? Mars bars strained against Maniac arms. You ain't gonna worry about me coming to no more of your parties, Fishbelly. And you ain't gonna worry about me invading this piss hole. Anybody come to a block away, they faint from the smell. Maniac announced. McNabb advanced. Maniac shouted, John, you owe me one. I bought the boys back. McNabb took another step. They stayed. The cobra stayed, and Maniac clamping the struggling Mars bars for dear life, lugging him down a gauntlet of seething eyes to the door into the street. Mars bars wrenched free and stomped on above. Maniac followed. It was almost dark. High above, the streetlights were buzzing on, one by one. After several blocks, Mars bars wheeled. You suckered me. You softened me up with them. Pick peoples, then bring me here. What'd you think? I was gonna cry? Okay, I come over. I did it. It's done. And don't you be coming around me no more. You hear me, fish? Because you ain't only seen me half bad yet. He turned and headed due east. Maniac walked another way. It was a good question. What had he thought? What had he expected? A miracle? Well, come to think of it, maybe one had happened. While he was looking for one miracle, maybe another had snuck up on him. It happened as he was clamping and lugging Mars bars down a gauntlet of cobras, trying to get him to keep him alive. And what was Mars bars doing? Fighting him. Maniac straining to get loose and bust some cobras. Outnumbered, outweighed, but not outhearted. That's what Maniac felt it. Pride for his East End warrior, whom Maniac could feel trembling in his arms. Scared as any normal kid would be, but not showing it to them. Yeah, you're bad, all right. Mars bars, you're more than bad. You're good. Maniac stopped. He had been walking in circles. It was dark. He turned one way, then another. For the briefest moment, thinking it's time to go home now. Then remembering that once again, he had no home to go to. Chapter 42 question is, what do you think Maniac thought would happen by taking Mars bar to the party? A lot of these questions are going to be your own personal opinions too. So if you don't get them, it's not a big deal. All right, chapter 43. He stepped in the park that night, and for the next dozen or so, sometimes in the buffalo shed, other times at bandshell benches or the pavilion. The nights were warm now. June was on the way. He ate when and where he could. For apples and carrots and day-old hamburger buns, you couldn't beat the deer and buffalo pens. A new Acme had opened, and the bakery section always had a tray of free samples sitting in the counter. And then there were always the Pickwells. It may have been an illusion, but it seemed like the hungrier he got, the farther Mrs. Pickwell's whistle traveled. Some dinner times, there was hardly a spot in town from which he could not hear it. He read in the library. He'd join pickup games in the park, baseball, basketball. School was letting out. There were more kids. Mornings were the best. He would rise with the sun's color before the sun itself, before the bison set out. He came to think of these apple skin hours as a special time at the town. There was not a street or alleyway or a house or store, not even a garage that he did not recognize. His footsteps fell everywhere between them, but the bridge over the Skull Hill, his eyes everywhere but on the P&W trolley trestle. And the people, most of them he did not know by name or face, yet they revealed themselves to him even as they slept. He knew them by their windows and cars and porches and toys they left outside, but most of all, he knew them by their backyards. Flowers, weeds, junk, pet houses, tree houses, vegetable gardens, rubber tires, grass ranging from desert spars to shaggy to trim to a marine's haircut. The backyards were as different as individual as faces. East End and West End, black and white, would begin only when the alarm clocks rang. For now, before sunrise, there were no divisions, no barriers. There was only people, the families, the town, his town, as much as his town as anyone's. He knew he could be sleeping right then in the Beals house or the Pickwells or even the McNabbs. But beyond that, for a few enchanted moments each newborn morning, he believed there was not a single home in 2 Mills, not a single one, that would not happily welcome him to enter and go upstairs and curl up between its sleepers. Maybe that's why he left his bandshell bench late one night in mid-June and went to somebody's backyard on Hamilton Street. someone whose leaf lettuce had been watching growing, and quietly opened the gate and closed it behind him, and laid himself down in a white wicker love seat on the back porch. From then on, he slept in a different backyard or back porch every night. Once finding the back door unlocked, he slept in a kitchen. Why do you think Maniac started sleeping in the backyards? Remember how Maniac said backyards are kind of like individual people. You can see what they're like. So that should help you with that one. All right, chapter 44. One morning in early July, cruising down the Appleskin Hour, Maniac thought he heard footsteps other than his own. He stopped. Only the vast quietness responded. It happened a few more times. Must be his own footfalls echoing down the row house's canyons. 2 days later, passing an alley, he thought someone moved on the other end, and once, turning onto the broad street, he had the feeling, more sense than sight, that someone had just flashed around a corner 2 blocks away. When these odd sensations continued for another morning or two, Maniac knew he was not alone. So he was not totally surprised when a few mornings later he turned a corner and ran smack into another early hour cruiser. No, it wasn't that surprised him. It was who? Mars Bars Thompson. They quickly bounced off each other and went their separate ways. Neither paused, neither said a word. This was the first in a series of apparently random mergings, intersections, alleyways. One never knew when he would come up upon the other. Sometimes they found themselves running the same route, only a block apart. On one occasion, they trotted down the same street at the same time in the same direction, but on opposite sides of the street. And then one day, as it happened, they each turned a particular corner at the same moment and headed off the same direction side by side. Still neither spoke. They never, not even their eyes met. They jogged silently for a block, then veered apart. The next time they dovetailed, they stayed out that way for 2 blocks, then 3 blocks, and so on. No words, no looks, just the rhythmic slapping of their sneaker soles upon the sidewalk and pulsing duet of their breathings. Stride for stride, shoulder to shoulder, breath for breath, till they were matching on all points, harness pair, 2 runners becoming one. Morning after morning, it happened this way, the 2 of them dovetailing at the intersection and without the slightest hitch in a stride, cruising off together. Though each face showed no awareness of the other, they were in fact minutely sensitive to each other. If Mars Bars cranked up the pace just a notch, Maniac would pick up within a stride. If Maniac inched ahead, Mars Bars was there. If one veered to the left or right, the other followed like a shadow. One day, one was the leader, the next day the other. One day, Mars Bars would lead Maniac down the river, down the tracks, past the railroad gondolas, each with his mountain of coal, to the rolling mill at the steel plant where his father worked. Another day, Maniac would head for the township to the north and west, the farmlands of the country, where dew sparkled on spider webs, and nature was doing such fresh and wonderful things that you could almost hear the long, neat congregations of corn clapping, amen and amen. When the working people began leaving their houses, the daybreak boys diverged, Mars Bars to the east end, Maniac to wherever. A week passed, a second week, morning after morning, stride for stride, breath by breath, never a word, never a glance, each believing the other simply happened to be going where he was going. They were cruising Main Street one morning, passing the Grand Movie Theater, when Piper McNabb came screaming down the middle of the empty street. He was wide-eyed and crying and soaking wet. His feet were slathered in cold, black mud. He shrieked and bawled at them, but he made no sense, so they just followed as he raced frantically back up the street. As they ran, the belch-like toot of the whistle grew louder and louder. He led them down to the corner of Main and Sweet to where the platform of P&W Trolley Terminal hung high above the sidewalk. He burst into the terminal building and up the steps. In a moment, Maniac and Mars Bars were on the platform, gasping and following Piper's pointing finger down the tracks. What they saw pulled the fragments of Piper's babble together. The boys had been playing bombs away. Piper's part was to sail the raft down the river. Russell's part was to wait in the trolley trestle that spanned the river, and when Piper passed underway, the bomb away from a bucketful of rocks. Everything went as planned, unless you count Russell's failing to sink the raft, and Piper's practically drowning trying to beach it, until Piper returned to the terminal to find Russell still out in the trestle. Apparently, without the target below to focus on, Russell had suddenly discovered how high he was. One false step, he could slip right between the ties to the river, and that's where Russell was now, out in the middle of the trestle, high over the water, frozen in terror, not even a railing to cling to, responding neither to Piper's cries nor to the red and yellow P&W trolley which was occupied the trestle, idling and tooting away 20 feet away. Piper pulled at Maniac. Save him, save him. Mars Bar stared with growing astonishment as Maniac, whose wide, unblinking eyes were fixed on the trestle, yet somehow did not seem to register what was there, nor did he seem to hear Piper pleading. With the drenched, mud-footed kid clawing at him, he turned without a word, without a gesture, and left the platform and went downstairs. Shortly he appeared on the sidewalk below. He crossed Main and continued walking slowly up Swede, Piper screaming after him from the end of the platform. So 44, the question is, why do you think Maniac and Mars Bars walk together every morning? Oh, 2 more chapters, and then we're done. Maniac, or McGee. Maniac's first groggle thought was that it was a buffalo calling him. Then he thought, it's the superintendent. He's discovered me and he's come to kick me out. He propped himself on his elbow, swatted a straw from his ear, and gave it better listen. McGee, Mars bar. It was the second night following the morning at the trestle. Maniac had been asleep in the buffalo lean-to. He stood. McGee, where are you? Here, over here. He headed toward the voice over the hoof-chopped earth. The moon was full. He could see Mars bar's dark form against the fence. Then he could see his eyes. Where you been? What are you doing here? I've been looking for you. I heard you hung out here. Where'd you hear that? Amanda Beale? You really sleep here, ma'am? What do you think? Where's the buffaloes? I can't see them. They're sleeping like every other person that's got sense. What are you gonna do out here this time of the night? I snuck out. I'm not there when they wake up. They'll figure out I'm running like usual. Ain't you afraid in there? No. Both fell silent. Cricket talking, fireflies held the night. McGee, yeah, I gotta ask you something. Go ahead. Why didn't you go after the kid? Why'd you go away? Maniac didn't answer. Listen, man, I know you wasn't scared. I know it, so I had to come to ask you. Maniac's voice came faintly. Is he okay? I asked you first. Maniac drew a long breath. You want to come in? Mars bars laughed. Are you kidding? Ain't no buffalo gonna eat this dude. They don't eat people. You come out here, ma'am. Maniac climbed the fence. He started to walk. Mars bars walked with him. Maniac told him the story of his parents' death. He told him about his problem with the trestle and how he learned to avoid it. And then all of a sudden, there I was on the platform looking out at it, closer to it than I ever was before, on the same level. I always saw it from below before. Now I was up there too, where they were, looking down, and it was more real than ever. The nightmare was worse than ever. I saw the trolley coming. I saw it falling. Them. They watched in silence past the silo-shaped cage of the broken-winged golden eagle. Marsball swallowed hard. His voice was hoarse. I knew he wasn't scared. Maniac sniffed. I don't remember much. Next thing I knew, I was somewhere on Sweet Street. Somebody came down on the east end like you did, all by himself, and a fish belly got up in my face. He rippled a stick along the deer pen fence. I knew I wasn't scared. I knew what scared, wasn't it? So, said Maniac, what happened? Mars bars laughed, wagged his head. Happened? Man, I still don't believe it. He rippled the fence. This little hunky. He looks at me, all his crybaby face, and says, okay, can I go out and get his brother? I look around, like, is somebody else here? I says to him, who you talking to, me? I'm just pulling his chain, only he didn't know it, because I'm tickled a little, because he was hollering for you up the street, and there I am standing right alongside the dang stupid white polka potato, understand what I'm saying? Maniac nodded, and out of the darkness came the strangest sound, a kind of amplified gulp. Mars bars jumped. What's that? Emu, said Maniac. There. Beside the nearest fence loomed a tall, thin neck topped by a small head. What? Emu, second largest bird in the world after the ostrich. They're from Australia. I don't remember studying about no emu. He buddies with all these dudes? No, just a buffalo. So go ahead. What happened? What happened? Mars bar snorted. What happened was I went out and rescued the dumb fish. Like to get myself killed. Maniac touched Mars bar's arm. He's okay? Mars bar snickered. Yeah, he's okay, but that ain't the main part. The main part is how he was grabbing onto me, coming off the track, shaking, shivering, hugging, like he wanted to climb inside me. I was afraid. He shook his head again. His head giggled, afraid the fish belly was going to kiss me. They laughed. Maniac tried to picture it, the two of them making their way across the trestle, tie by tie, arms wrapped around each other. And even that ain't the mainest part, said Mars bar, his voice raising in wonder. Even when we got off, the midget wouldn't let go of me. We're off it, I says to him. You're rescued, but all he does is grab me harder like he's an octopus or something. Off the platform, down the steps, out to the street. He's still doing it. I couldn't pry him off, no how. So, said Maniac, what'd you do? What'd I do? I took him home. Maniac stopped dead. What? Mars bar shrugged. I figured let my mom pry him off me, because of course the other one had to come too, but I made him leave them muddy sneakers outside. He put his nose to a fence. What's in there? I don't see nothing. Prairie dog town. They're underground. So what then? So my mother took over. She pried the one off me, and as soon as she does, he jumps right into her like an octopus. I go to pull him off, and she gets all mad at me and said, let him go, let him go. She gets the wet one dried off, takes off his clothes, and puts my old stuff on him. Stuff she's been saving in case I get a little brother someday. But I won't, because my mom can't have no babies no more. And I ain't even come to the craziest part yet. What's that? They don't want to go home. They stayed all day. My mother's bathing them, feeding them. I tell her not to. She swats me away. Sometimes my mother ain't got no sense. She makes me play games with them, Monopoly and stuff. Finally, my father arrives and drives them home. It's after dark. They're getting out of the car, and know what they say to me? I'm in the car too. He wags his head. They ask me to come in and play that game of theirs, Rebels, like they beg me. They said, come on, please. If you play with us, we'll let you be white. They believed. You believe that? Maniac chuckled. I believe it. They walked on. McGee, yeah, I had to ask you something. Now I gotta tell you something. What's that? You smell like buffalo. Ears of 100 different shapes prickled at the long, loud laughter of the boys. McGee, Marsbar said after a spell. Yeah, my mother wants to ask you something too. Your mother? Yeah, like I told her about you, you know. Actually, she already heard about you, so she wants to know, like, why don't you come to our house? Maniac turned, stared directly at Marsbar. Marsbar looked away. He said nothing more. Then they walked on, silent among the crickets and fireflies. Having made a full circle of the zoo, they went back at the pen of the American bison. Maniac said, I can't. Why not? Said Marsbar. My house not good enough? My mother? Maniac struggled for words. I didn't say I didn't want to. I don't know. Things happened. I can't. Look, ma'am. Marsbar snapped. Ain't nobody saying come live with us. All she is saying is you want to come for a little. You can visit. You want to? Well, come on. You can. That's all. Don't go making no big thing, man. Ain't no big thing. Maniac shuddered. He turned his eyes to the sky, but beyond the flickering fireflies to the stars. If there were answers, they were as far away as the constellations. I gotta go, he said, and before Marsbar could react, he was over the fence and hurrying for the lean-to. 45 question is, why do you think Marsbar's invited Maniac to his house? And why do you think Maniac said no? Last chapter, 46. The teeth of the buffalo clamped firmly upon his ear and lifted his head up from the straw, up from the sleep. Marsbar's was white. They do eat people. The buffalo did more than bring great pain to his ear. It spoke to him. Ain't you nice? Ain't you nice? But the voice of the buffalo was the voice of Amanda Beale, and his teeth were her fingers pulling and retching that poor ear until he was sitting upright. See that? She snapped and scrambled his brains with a smack to the head. He'd rather she pull his ear. There you go, making me say ain't. I have not said that word all year long, and now you go making me so mad. She snatched a handful of straw and flung it at him. I'm sorry, he said. He wondered if he could have better luck sleeping in the emu pen. Can I ask you a question? Make it quick, she growled. Except for making you say ain't, what is it I'm saying sorry for? What? She screeched. She was standing above him, hands on hips. He didn't need the light of day to feel the look on her face. You're sorry for a whole mess of things, boy. You're sorry because you didn't accept Snickers' invitation to his house. And you're sorry because he came throwing a ball up against my bedroom window and waking me up and telling me I had to get up out of my bed and sneak out of my house in the middle of the night and come out here to do something all about all this. That ain't why you are sorry, boy. That is why you're sorry, boy. Maniac yawned. Snickers. That's what I'm changing his name to. How bad can you act if everybody calls you? She said it loud. Snickers. A voice came rasping from the fence. Shut up, girl. Maniac howled with laughter. It struck him that it had been a long time since he had reared back like this, so he just let the laughter carry on as long as it wanted. When he finally settled down, Amanda said, okay, let's go. Huh, said Maniac, let's go. Where? Home. Whose? Mine. Ours. Yours. Come on, I'm sleepy. Oh no, Maniac opened his eyes to speak, to protest, to explain, but there was too much. 100 nights would not be long enough to explain, to make her understand, so he simply said, I can't, and lay back down. In an instant, he was bolt upright again, yanked by her hand he couldn't believe belonged to a girl. Don't tell me can't. I didn't come all the way out here in my nightshirt and my slippers and climb out that fence and almost kill myself so I could hear you tell me can't. She was yelling. Several pens away, Prairie Dog Town stirred, heads popped up into the moonlight. You got us all wrong, Buster. You see, she kicked him. You do not have a choice. I am not asking you, I'm telling you. You are coming home with me and you're going to sleep in my room, which is going to be your room. And I don't care if you sleep on the floor or the windowsill or what, but you're going to sleep there and not here. And you are going to sleep there tonight and tomorrow and the night after that and the night after that and every night, except maybe once in a while, if you decide to sleep over at Snickers' house. If he ever asks you again, this is not your home. Now move. She jerked him to his feet. Applause and a brief whistle came from the fence. Amanda led him by the hand across the muddy, lumpy earth. Boost me, she commanded at the fence. He boosted her. Marsbar helped her down from the other side. Maniac hesitated, then climbed over himself. They walked through the zoo and down the boulevard, the three of them. Amanda and Marsbar, Snickers, and Maniac. Amanda grumbled all the way. You're in more trouble outside the house than in it. Now I'm going to have to throw those slippers away. There's probably buffalo poop all over them. And you better not come in within 10 feet of me, boy, till you get a bath. Maniac said nothing. He was quite content to let Amanda do the talking, for he knew that behind her grumbling was all that he ever wanted. He knew that finally, truly, at long last, someone was calling him home. End of book. 46, the question is, why do you think Maniac changed his mind and went with Amanda? All right, so you have a few things in your things that I gave you. One's a crossword, one's a word search, and one is like a fill in the blank bubble vocab thing. I want you to do at least I want you to do the vocab multiple choice, fill in the bubbles, take a picture of it front and back, send that to me by tomorrow, so by Wednesday. And then the crossword and the word search can be extra credit if you want to do it. Okay, so vocab, multiple choice, fill in the bubbles. I need that by tomorrow. And then the word search and crossword is going to be extra credit. And then the questions you really should have done while I was reading to you anyways. And there's no grammar because we did that together. So tomorrow is AR reading. So make sure you have an AR book handy and ready to go. I will see you later.